sticky bit there. So the title of our session, as I say, is around how good is our community learning and development, and the bit that June's going to cover from a practitioner's point of view is around a project called How Good Is Our Saturday Night. So I'll first of all start off with just a wee bit of background about How Good Is Our CLD 4th edition. We produced this last year. Now we in the Education Scotland have been working on this for some time, and it is now live on our website. And this obviously replaced our previous How Good Is Our framework. And we now in this one have 16 quality indicators under 3 sections. And those are the 3 sections there: performance and outcomes, management and delivery, and leadership and direction. And each quality indicator, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, has 3 themes with an illustration of very good and some challenge questions that help you look at the quality indicator and ask yourself those questions. Just some features of the document, which is different from the one that we had before. We've had a greater focus on addressing inequalities through some of the quality indicators. And one of the expectations that we have is that partnership working is key throughout all of the quality indicators. So a greater focus on that. And important to say that every quality indicator can be used by every practitioner. It's not just for, for example, the leadership quality indicators are not just for those in senior positions. Everybody can use them because, we know that people in the different types of practice at different times will be leading. So it was to try and make that clear that the leadership is not just for those who see themselves in more senior positions. And we've tried to put greater clarity between the outcomes and the practice that supports these outcomes. And we think it's a better reflection of all of the work of community learning and development, where it's not just what's provided by the local authorities, it's third sector partnerships and anyone who uses a community learning and development methodology in their work. And it reflects its current changes in Scottish education and community empowerment. And it's important to say it's an entirely online document now, which you can print bits off, but it's generally as an online document which can be changed and adapted more easily than the frameworks we had in the past. So I'll pass on now to Alona, my colleague, if that's okay, Alona.
Yes, that's grand. So what you've got in front of you now is a list of all the different quality indicators, just to give you a flavour of what's in it. Each of the quality indicators lets you drill into that aspect of work a wee bit more, as Sheila was saying. It is online, it is in English and in Gaelic, and when you go to the online site, you'll find that there's some supporting information. So as well as the quality indicators, the online site gives you some ideas of how to use it. It gives you the 6-point scale that we as inspectors use, and some partnerships and practitioners find it helpful to use that themselves. There's also a page with case studies, which is currently sitting with 3 case studies, which I'm going to talk to you a wee bit about. I'm going to talk to 2 of you about. June will actually go into detail on the 3rd one. But we aim to add to that as the years go by. So the case studies will build and develop as we go along, so you'll get more examples. Sheila, can you go on to that next slide? Like I say, we're over the sort of last 18 months, we've been running a range of sort of pilots, and we had a sort of draft version of the framework up for a year, and we were really encouraging people to use it and come back to us with any feedback about any changes that were needed. As a result of that, we did add a little bit to some of the language, and particularly we added to the glossary, because some of the people that are newer to using How Good Is Our frameworks were saying, actually, we really want to understand what you mean by things like community development, family learning, etc. So there is a glossary there for people that are perhaps less familiar with community learning and development, and we find people have found that really helpful. So, like I say, partners are using the quality indicators for self-evaluation, and that's sort of increasing month on month, how much people are doing that. The case studies are there just to give you ideas for how people are using them, but they're not prescriptive at all. We would expect there'd be a really wide range of uses of this document over the next few years. So I'm going to talk you through a couple of the case studies that are online. So in Aberdeenshire, the Community Learning and Development Partnership, the body that's made up of stakeholders from a whole pile of agencies and organisations, and is responsible for overseeing community learning and development across the Aberdeenshire area. They decided a year ago that they were going to use the framework to look at themselves and how they operate. So they looked at partnership working, excuse me, they looked at partnership working, and they looked at 6.1 raising standards. They had 2 1-hour sessions, and during those sessions, they used some of the challenge questions to really ask themselves the hard questions. From that, they've had a real increase in their mutual understanding of each other's work, but also they've been able to identify some challenges for themselves as a partnership and start to have that discussion about how they're going to jointly overcome those challenges. Scottish Borders, the Community Learning and Development team in the local authority in the Scottish Borders Council, have been using the framework to help practitioners really reflect on their practice. So the adult learning team, for example, looked at 2.3 improving life chances alongside 4.2 delivery of community learning to really explore with each other what they're doing well at the moment. Is there areas that they maybe have gaps in? And I think they found that really useful as a tool to reflect on each other's practice and really identify their strengths, which quite often as practitioners, we know we don't take time to do. We're so busy that we just go on to the next bit of work rather than actually going, that worked really well. Why did that really work well? They also identified that they had a need to maybe gather slightly more evidence to show what they were doing well. And from that, they've adapted some of their tools that they use to capture learner tracking and the learner database, just to expand slightly so they were getting the evidence that they really wanted to get around, for example, work with those that are experiencing poverty. And then in Murray Council, as an example that's not up on the website yet, but I went along and co-delivered some workshops up in Murray, online workshops with the CLD teams. They have 3 CLD teams up there, and that really helped the 3 teams to actually understand each other's work a bit more through that discussion. We also did sessions through the third sector interface with a whole range of third sector, voluntary and small scale community organisations. And that's really helped them to start to reflect together on what they have in common, but also they've taken that away to actually use in their individual organisations as well. And again, just focusing in on 1 or 2 quality indicators at a time rather than try to do the whole framework, but really drilling in on what is it that they need to look at right now. What are their areas that are really important to them, which I know for some of the smaller third sector organisations were linked to how they were going to evidence for funding streams, for example. So that's just to give you a wee flavour. I should say that when we get to the end of this workshop, we've got a QR code that will flag up, and that also links you directly into the framework. But you can also create QR codes for each individual quality indicator. So again, we've got feedback that some people, when they're working with learners or with community organisations, have actually been able to send the QR code to those learners and participants and activists so they can directly get into whatever quality indicator that they're going to be discussing. Again, feedback seems to indicate that people really like that. Particularly some of the activists and younger people seem to really like that as a method of accessing the framework. So it's just so you know, that's an easy route that you can take. Okay, so that was a whistle-stop tour, but I'm going to pass you on to June, who's going to actually provide a more in-depth example of one of the case studies. So June, I'll pass on to yourself. Thank you.
Wonderful. I'll work the slides.
Oh, thank you. I was hoping you were going to say that, Sheila. Thank you. I was going to say it's lovely to see everybody, but I can't actually
can't see them.
many faces at all. So I'll do my task, and hopefully, you know, there's lots of times for discussion as well. So I would just like to say thank you for asking me along to share this experience. But I have to say we probably wouldn't have been sharing this experience because we also kind of need the help from the likes of Sheila and Alona, and we did seek that help when we were doing this exercise as well. So we'd like to just kind of say that thank you for that kind of support and guidance that's kind of led us on to where we are in this particular project as well. So I'll just kind of move on to the slide then,
Yep.
Sheila, if that's okay. I think, you know, just to kind of say a bit of context to this particular project. So within North Lanarkshire, we have Friday night projects and Saturday night projects. These are a multi-agency, it's overseen by a multi-agency management group, which is made up of myself, the CLD Youth Work Manager. We have the chair of the Health and Social Care Partnership. We have representation from police, fire and rescue, social work and sports development as well. So there's a lot of kind of interested partners within this. It's been running for probably in excess of 10 years, so it supersedes me in this role and others as well. And I think it's really important that Sheila highlighted at the beginning there that partnership runs all the way through the framework, because partnerships are vital, and partnerships also need to be reviewed themselves to make sure that we're still kind of have the same vision that we started out with. And that was probably the reason why we decided to use the framework, How Good Is Our CLD version 4, to kind of look at post-COVID. Is this project still doing what we need it to do, and does it need to do something different? And does the partnership still have the same vision and values that we set out to do? So we decided to, I suppose, give it a go, really. It's probably a flippant way to say it, but certainly not a flippant approach to our work there as well. So very quickly, the Saturday night projects that we looked at. So CLD funds the Saturday night projects. It's ran across 5 venues on a Saturday night in North Lanarkshire. We use 5 sports centres to do that. So they're closed to the public and only open to our young people that attend. In any given weekend on a Saturday night, we're looking between 800 and 900 young people engaging in free physical activity, which ranges from where there's a swimming pool, they have free access to the swimming pool. They have access to gyms where they're supported by sports development staff. They have access to multi-sports, which can be badminton, football. They have access to outdoor pitches, and we also have our CLD youth workers on site delivering community-based youth work activities, but also particularly supporting our most vulnerable young people, who we have invited along to the projects, or through our partnership we know why young people should be there. So we describe it as diversity activities for young people. We don't describe it as diversity youth work, because it's not that model of youth work, and I say that because I'll come back to that point later on. So that kind of sums it up. We kind of view it as an early intervention and engagement model for some of our young people, who then we kind of use the Saturday night projects to signpost them into maybe other community-based activities and other opportunities for support and learning. So moving on, Sheila, if that's all right. So as I said, we kind of, I'm saying we because I know my colleague Jennifer Lafferty is also on the call. So Jennifer is one of our CLD development officers, who also kind of looks after our diversity work there, because we have an operational group as well, which is made up of the same partners. So Jennifer leads on that. So in terms of looking at the quality indicators, we kind of sat down and done a good bit of preparation around what quality indicators we felt were most appropriate to this particular project, and then spent probably more time looking at the challenge questions associated to each of the quality indicators, and probably looking at what we wanted to get out of this process and the purpose of focusing in on. We could have looked at any area of CLD youth work, but the reasons why we wanted to look at this particular piece of work was because in terms of a COVID recovery model, as I said, we wanted to make sure that the leadership was there in each venue, the roles and responsibilities were clear in the venue, the purpose and the nature of the project was clear to all the partners, and did we need to change what we were doing, and what evidence would we gather that we could then support us to look at enhancing this particular piece of work. So we spent a good bit of time looking at the challenge questions which we felt were most relevant under each of the quality indicators, which led us to our next slide, please, Sheila.
Yep.
So hopefully this is clear to people on the screen. I'll explain here what we did there. So under each of the quality indicators, there's a challenge question. In the colour codes, I'll explain those. So we then decided, out of these challenge questions, what methods would we be using to get the answers that we were looking for. So we wanted to involve young people in it. We wanted to involve the staff, CLD staff, as well as our colleagues in sports development, who were key delivery partners as well. And so methods of doing that was about looking at focus groups and looking at surveys. So for example, if I use the first one, 1.1, performance against aims and targets, you'll see the challenge questions that we looked at there was overall, how well can we demonstrate the collective impact of our work on our learners, groups, communities in the wider area? We agreed that was, we would look at including that into a survey question, which was aimed at the staff. In terms of, partnership working, we looked at challenge question 5. How well do we ensure that within our partnership, that roles and responsibilities of each member of the organisation is clearly understood by everyone? And that was, we were going to tease that out through focus groups as well there. So I think when we'd kind of shared how we were going to do this with Sheila, I think, Sheila, you quite liked how we had colour coded it as our methods to know like who we were going to be teasing the challenge questions out with, and how we were going to do it. And I think that also helped us as the youth work manager and the development officer then actually give ourselves a timeline and be very clear on what we were doing, how we were doing it, and who we're involving in that evidence gathering approach there as well. So what I suppose, what did we find from that? So that takes us on to the next slide. So using the kind of focus group, these are the questions that we teased out from that. So how do we know there's a shared sense of purpose? How do we know that the partnership roles and responsibilities are understood? How well do we ensure the learning offers there? And how do we recognise and celebrate achievement and attainment? So how we done that focus group was between myself and Jennifer. We went out to the sites where the activities take place. We arranged with our colleagues in sports development to make sure that we had in the focus group was a range of staff that were coming from a coordinator's point of view, so somebody with leadership responsibility in the venue in terms of health and safety, looking after the staff and making sure that there was registrations and things like that took, but we also had in it like the coaches who were there to deliver the activities. We also included in the focus groups our CLD staff, but also our support staff as well. So we made sure that it wasn't just like the same people from the one venue. We kind of coordinated it that there would be a bit of a shared experience there, as well as a bit of peer support that came from that as well. So in terms of the findings that we got using that approach, which takes us on to our next slide, please, Sheila. What we gained from that was that, that staff do have a clear understanding of the nature of the project, which was good. But what we did find that, and again, I don't think this is unique in a lot of kind of COVID recovery pieces of work, was that the staff from the partnership, as in sports development, we're really keen to find out, well, how does youth work do what youth work does? So an example of that is, you know, staff, what we're saying is in the focus groups was, I know how to do my coaching part where it's about, you know, the gym induction or the basketball, and I know I've got a good relationship with young people, but I have observed youth workers, and what they were basically saying was they observed youth workers using a trauma-informed approach to their work. That's not the language that they use, but we knew what they meant. So we're now at a point where we're looking at a staff development programme where we're introducing, we've already done quite a few courses on this, is First Steps to Youth Work. So it's about, you know, it's the project, the vision of the project is about providing diversity activities for young people on a Saturday night, which are at free costs, but we need to recognise that our young people are coming with different kind of issues that maybe sports development coaches don't see on a kind of day-to-day basis within different areas of work. But within that Saturday night, we know that young people are presenting with different kind of challenges. So they were watching the youth workers use that relationship and trauma-informed practice. So we knew that was kind of coming across there as well. And we knew from that in terms of the numbers of our young people, where they were coming from, that we're removing those barriers to participation. And 63% said that they involve young people in the planning. So we've done a wee bit of deep dive into that, and it's like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean like you can have basketball tonight, or you can go to the gym, or you can go to the swimming? Or is it about what does that mean in terms of planning for the future? So we've got examples now of young people becoming young leaders in the programmes. So it was about making sure that, as well as providing, you know, what might be seen on the face of it as, I'm going to go swimming for free on a Saturday night and I'm going to go and play basketball. It's like making sure that these key people who are part of the project understand the kind of nature and purpose of why we're doing what we're doing, not just, you know, how we're doing what we're doing, but why we're doing what we're doing. So there was a lot of that coming out from the focus groups with staff, which was really, really useful. Next slide, please, Sheila. And from our young people, you know, it was really important that we included them in this conversation. So through the survey and the focus groups, as you can see there, 92% said that they had friends at the project. You know, that to me, that's saying, well, young people will keep turning up. You know, if they've got, you know, good friendships there, and a lot of them said that it was really good to talk to staff. So for me then, as the youth work manager, is about saying, well, if we've got this opportunity where young people are telling us that they've got good relationships with their peer groups and good relationships with the staff, how do we then make best use of that intervention and forward planning and approach there? So I suppose that what I'm saying is, like, by using the challenge questions and using the framework, we not only got a kind of positive reinforcement of what we were doing was really good, but also kind of confirmed our direction of travel. And in terms of working in partnership, I didn't want to go to the management steering group and say, we have to do it this way because June Ford says we have to do it this way, although there's times I have done that. But it's also about saying we have used a robust, comprehensive, evaluative framework that has reinforced our successes, but it's also reinforced where we need to make improvements. So what those improvement means for the management group is X, Y, and Z. So I think that takes us on to the next slide, please, Sheila.
I think you froze there, June.
Looks like we may have lost June.
Yep. Oh, that's a shame.
Online. We'll give her just a minute or so.
Yeah. I think what it does show, certainly for me, and about you, Lona, is how using that framework in that way that it is flexible, you know, can give you this kind of evidence, which I think is really helpful.
Hi, sorry.
You back, June?
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So just in terms of a reflection on the process, again, this maybe look quite flippant, but I think sometimes when you see the document, you don't necessarily think that it's going to be as a straightforward process. And I think the feedback from staff, not only from myself and Jennifer, but other staff involved in the process, was that it wasn't as bad as what we thought it was going to be. But I think it was because, you know, we got a bit of support from Sheila, but also it was about not looking too big. It was looking at, you know, a particular project and not necessarily, as you said at the beginning, Sheila, saying, well, leadership means for those in strategic management. It was about the leadership for us in the venues and actually kind of taking forward the vision of and the purpose of the project. We got our evidence get gathered, which was fantastic. We got young people who reinforced that. We got clear actions for success and improvement. And I think for us as a CPD, I think it was really good for us to use evaluative language in terms of our reporting. So it enabled us to kind of look and reflect on, you know, we maybe weren't using evaluative language as part of our kind of COVID restrictions on reactions to delivery, but doing this as part of our COVID recovery, it kind of reinforced that we should be using evaluative language in our work, and it gave us the opportunity to return to that as well. I think the next slide's on next steps, I think, Sheila. No, okay, so just to kind of finish off then, in terms of what we're doing now, so we've used the evidence from How Good Is Our Saturday Night project, and we've kind of transferred that evidence and successes and actions into proposals. So we've kind of, the partnership, on behalf of the partnership, I presented to the North Lanarkshire Alcohol and Drugs Partnership last week. So we know that everybody has an interest in this project, but it was about saying, yeah, well, we're doing what we say on the tin, but how do we do it better? And one of the things was around detached youth work and young people who are not engaging in the Saturday night. So we've had verbal agreement and followed up with an email hopefully this week, which will confirm additional funding to help us develop that particular area of work further, which is amazing. We're also about to do the same process as well for attach it to, we're keep using the brands now or the strap lines, so we're going to use it to do How Good Is Our DAV. So following on from this, we're now at a process where it's like, you know, we've clearly been running Duke of Edinburgh Awards in the service for many years. We've got very good results, but just because we've got those good results, should we always be doing it the way that we've been doing it? So we're going to now look again, revisit the quality indicators, revisit the challenge questions, and then revisit that, because again, it's that partnership approach and about making sure that we're doing that we're leading on this, but our partners are buying into the vision and the values of the CLD approach, and using the evaluative framework, I think, gives a bit credibility as well there. So that's where we're going with our next steps, and hopefully we can learn again from the things that we've already learned in doing How Good Is Our Saturday Night project. So hopefully that kind of gives a wee bit of context and a wee bit of reflection on what we did in our plan do review process, and hopefully folk will come in and maybe ask any questions either about what we've done, but obviously kind of get back to some of the points that have already been raised with Alona and Sheila. So thank you very much.
Thank you, June. That was really useful to hear it in action, if you like, and how you used it. It's really useful. That just to flag up there that's the QR code that Alona mentioned earlier, and that's what the How Good Is looks like online with the colours and things. So it's just to say that's there if folk want to have a look at that, or to look at the QR code. You can also get it's on the Education Scotland website. So I'll come out of that so I can actually see people. That's better. Can actually see people now. I just wondered if people have any questions. I think somebody's got their hand up. Laura, hello. Hello, Laura. You all right?
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, lovely to see you, June. I think it sounds really exciting, actually, the developments about taking it further and looking at the DAV as well. I'm going to be really excited to hear the next steps around that, because it looks really great. I just wondered, and it won't surprise you with me with my CLD adult learning type background on, I just wondered if any of the other teams in terms of North Lanarkshire, like the CLD family learning or CLD adult learning, have they got any plans to replicate something similar across them? Because it sounds like a great wee model that you've got going there, do you know?
Thanks, Laura. I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of my colleagues who are not in the call, because that'll be one of the June says moments. But I think, you know, just to kind of, you know, as a service, you'll know that we're committed to consistent self-evaluation on all the different projects as well. Jennifer, who I mentioned on the call, you know, works alongside our development officers within adult learning and family learning, and we're at the point where we're just about to launch our new plans. So I've every confidence that as part of that kind of monitoring and reviewing our new plans, that the self-evaluation model will be part of that. And if we can kind of look at supporting, you know, our colleagues within that model as well, through the likes of Jennifer and through pieces of work there, then we'll do work as part of a team. So as a service, absolutely the commitment, but it'll be up to Eleanor and Leslie and Emma to take that forward. I'll let them know though.
Encourage them. Good question,
Tell them to
Laura.
contact me at any point in time if there's further developments.
Absolutely.
Has anyone else got any questions or comments? Or I don't know if there's anything. Is there anything in the chat? I don't think there is. Not specifically. Anything that people want to ask June more about, or ourselves in terms of the QIs? Quiet.
I can share the web page if people would find that helpful. I know sometimes in other sessions people have found that.
Yeah, that'd be good, Alona. Thanks. And I think, as Alona's put there, I think in the chat, we will be running more webinars in the autumn and winter, now that the framework, when it was first put on the website, was in draft, and it's now, you know, it's not in draft anymore. So we are going to be running a number of webinars, so look out for that. We're advertising them in the next wee while. They start at the beginning of October, and we're going to be spreading them over the course of the next few months. And what we'll do in that is focus on particular quality indicators to have a, you know, a kind of deeper look at. We'll do a general input to begin with. The first one's a sort of general one, but the others are focusing on particular QI. So if there's an interest in particular quality indicators, then, you know, look out for those, because they will be advertised. Oh, I think Una, did you want to ask something before Alona goes on with that?
Oh, sorry. Have we time for questions, Alona?
Una, go for it. I'll stop.
Go for it.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to get my camera on, but it doesn't seem to want to. I'm being camera shy, so bear with me. June, apologies, I can't see you. I found that really, really interesting. Great piece of work, and very interested in the approach of doing it with a partnership like that around a sort of defined piece of work. I'm interested to know what it was like with the partnership, introducing them to this kind of model of how good is our, because I'm guessing whilst that would be very familiar to you and your CLD colleagues, perhaps not as familiar to some of the partners. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that process, June?
Yep, I think, you know, in terms of the partnership, it was really good because it was actually saying this is from Education Scotland, this is a comprehensive and robust evaluative tool. So I think that, as I said earlier on, that gave it a bit more credibility, and actually kind of saying to staff, no, you do have to get involved in this process, you know, and probably I think for the staff who are there on the Saturday nights, you know, there's not many people who would work every single Saturday night, you know, let's be honest. So I think it was really important that those staff kind of seen ourselves out asking these questions, listening to what they were doing, but then, you know, kind of seeing an action from it, like the training that I discussed. So in terms of operationally, I think you know, folk can kind of see that this is a conversation that leads to action. In terms of the strategic management group, I think it really allowed us to kind of say, right, okay, because not all of us would be going out on a Saturday night, you know, but I think it kind of really did give us the opportunity to kind of say, right, okay, are we still doing what we said we were doing 10 years ago? Has it moved on? So as a result of some of this, not all of it, is that the management group have had 2 development sessions to actually refocus. And one of the things that we are refocusing on is our reporting and performance. You know, so where previously reporting and performance, and if I use evaluative language, was good, we've now started looking at, well, how do we go from good to very good and excellent? What do we need to kind of put in place? And I think, you know, without kind of like, no, let's be honest, CLD's taking the lead in that. You know, we've kind of said this is how it has to be done. So this is what we're presenting to you, and we need to change some of our management information systems to be better, so that we're going from good to very good and excellent. So they haven't resisted it. They've went, that's good. What do you need us to do? Which I think has been much better. But I think, you know, in terms of the operating group, is key, because there's from the operating point of view, it's like we can only extract the information from a management team if the information getting in is good, what we need at the front. And that's why the roles and responsibilities need to be clear from operationally, because it's such a multi-partnership. And then also from the kind of strategic framework, because at the end of the day, it's about funding as well. So I would probably say that there's been no kind of resistance about improvement agenda. I think it's been very well received, and I think, you know, they've been quite happy for us to take the lead on that improvement agenda.
No, that's good though, and I think your point, June, about using an external framework as well to say, you know, this isn't something we're, you know, just doing internally. We are using this as other people are, and you know, I think you described that journey well, and the fact that it's leading you to perhaps, you know, get more funding for detached worker. Was that what you said? So
yeah,
all to the good.
Thank you.
I think we've got a couple of minutes if anybody, because I think it finishes at past. Is there anything else anybody wants to ask?
See, I was about to put Una on the spot here, because one of the case studies I talked about, the Scottish
Scottish one was the Borders one, wasn't it?
Una was very involved with, so I didn't know if there was anything additional you'd want to say, Una.
I think just that we were very early stages of getting involved in the new version of How Good Is Our, and we were still sort of COVID recovery and trying to find our feet as to where we were and what we were doing. And it's a sort of useful grounding place to look again at what you're doing. I think you said the same, June, didn't you, that you've been doing something for quite a considerable time. It feels like the whole world has changed with COVID. It's useful then to sort of get back to basics and look at what you're doing. I would love, you know, when I'm going back to Borders, to take a much more structured and strategic approach to using it. And June, you've certainly inspired me from what I've heard. So great, thank you.
Thank you. Well done, June. You've inspired us.
That seems like a really positive note to end the session. June being inspiring to all of us. So
yes, thank you. I think that was really helpful, June. Thanks for doing that, and you know, it brings it to life. It's about bringing the framework to life with that example. So thank you for that. That was great, and thanks for everybody for joining today.